Tweet this thing out right quick. Damn it. Hello there, Hawkeye fans, and welcome to the Hawk Fanatic Rapid Reaction podcast. Again, it is not rapid, but it is a reaction. And maybe I'll use the bye week, Jovan, to come up with a new name for this podcast. I like the morning after, the day after, but maybe we'll throw it out there for the fans. If you want to come up with a new name for our podcast, go ahead and do that. I am Rob Howe. That is Jovan Johnson. We are down a man. Jordan Canzeri cannot be with us today. Had a personal matter. Some condolences out to JC and his family. Hopefully we'll have him back after the Northwestern game in a couple weeks. So it's me, Rob Howe, and Jovan Johnson, former Iowa defensive back, longtime professional. Jovan, I mean, there's no other place to start than the call. And just for people that are listening we've kind of gotten some information. It was ruled an invalid fair catch by Cooper DeJean, meaning that what his motions were with his arms, I guess the referees deemed to be deceptive because it wasn't a fair catch call is over your head. If you're kind of in the middle, that can be called invalid, and that's what it was called. Jovan, run with it, man. Your thoughts. Unload. Let's go.
I mean, I've always been a returner for the entire time of my football career. I have always been a kickoff and punt returner, and for the life of a returner, every time you're back to return a punt, the referee is talking to you and telling you, if you're going to fair catch, make sure your hand is above the head and clear and obvious so that we can protect you, basically. But anytime the ball is punted on the ground, so anytime there's a ball where they're trying to keep the ball away from the returner and they're putting the ball on the ground, when a returner is running, his hands are everywhere. I mean, when you run to a football, you don't just run like you do traditionally when you're trying to stay under control, get guys out of the way. There's a lot of things going on when the ball's on the ground. And one thing I've never seen is a returner fair catch a ball that was punted away from him and on the ground. Even the punt team, when he got the ball, they still tried to tackle him. So therefore, they didn't think or see any motion of fair catch being called by Cooper DeJean on that play. So that was, to me, one of the biggest calls in the history of a football rivalry that ultimately changed the game and the outcome. So I think they need to go back to the drawing board and talk about, what is the definition of the penalty or the dead ball call for a guy when there is some sort of incidental fair catch being ruled, because I didn't see an incidental fair catch. And, he was pointing and he was running at the same time. So it was clear to me that he wasn't trying to fair catch the ball. He was trying to get his guys out of the way.
Yeah, and he still has scar tissue from the Penn State game when Brandon Dees Fernandez had the ball hit him in the back and Penn State ends up recovering that. That's in his mind, and he's trying to organize everything in a chaotic situation. And like Jovan said, he's running towards a ball that's hitting the ground. Why in the hell would he signal a fair catch? It just doesn't make sense. And then the one thing that most bothered me, Jovan, was Cooper said he did not hear a whistle, and that's why he kept going. If it's a legal fair catch or if that's your call, blow the whistle. Blow it dead. Don't do it after the fact.
Yeah, you can't go back to replay to see, whether the play should have been stopped or should have been nullified. At the end of the day, when you go to replay on a play like that, you're replaying to see if there was like a guy if he was stepped out of bounds or anything of that. When I saw the replay, I thought they were checking to see if he actually stepped out of bounds on the side.
I think that's what they told Coach Ferentz, that the review, before the review, like when they were going to the review, from what Coach Ferentz said in the postgame, they told him they were reviewing that play to see if he stepped out of bounds.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought the review was, because you can't overturn a call once you let it play out. You can't overturn a call and say that there was an incidental fair catch signal. Like, that's not even in the rule book. To be able to overturn the call, like, if that's the case, you should be able to go back and take a look at all the penalties called. You should be able to go look at pass interferences. You should be able to go look at holdings. You should be able to overturn every penalty on the field if you can go back and look for an incidental fair catch call in a football game. You should be able to review every penalty.
Yeah, I mean, review holding. Let's review holding on every play and see how long the game takes to play, like 8 hours, something like that. If you're going to go back and call every hold or pass interference or anything like that. I think the thing that is hardest for everybody, Jovan, is that what Cooper did, we see on the regular. We see kids, we see guys in college, NFL, high school. He did what he was supposed to do, and he got penalized for it. And as we move on in this season and watch football in the future, we're going to see what he did a lot of times and it not be called. And that's what hurts the most. It seems like this was a situation where the referees overstepped what they needed to do here. They didn't need to do that.
No, they didn't. They should have let that be a play on and the play stand as called. You shouldn't be able to overturn that. Because you're like you said, you're going to see that play a 1,000 times throughout the season where teams are putting the ball on the ground, a returner's running to it, they're flaring their arms, like telling their guys to get away. Like, you don't know whether or not this or this. That's the difference between a fair catch and a telling the guys to get away. One's below the shoulders, one's above. So that's not a clear and obvious thing that you should be able to overturn. That was the biggest takeaway from that game for me, was how that was highway robbery, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be a tough one to get over, but Iowa's going to need to get over it. Has a bye week to kind of stew on this, to get the video ready to send to the Big Ten office for the officials. I'm sure that's already in the works. The university is going to the athletic department, the football staff. They'll send video. Although the office is already, they're very aware of what happened yesterday, and we'll see if they have any response to what happens in the aftermath. The referee, Tim O'Day, did talk to the pool reporter, Scott Dochterman, who does a podcast with me on this feed on Thursday, and explained what Jovan and I just talked about as the reasoning. And in talking, and listening to Cooper DeJean and Coach Ferentz after the game, they both were miffed at the explanation, at the call, everything. So we're all going to have to get over that one. But we also need to acknowledge the growing elephant in the room, Jovan, which is this Iowa offense. Even after that play, Iowa got the ball in good position to set up a really good field goal kicker for a field goal, try to win that game. And just nothing there. Ends in an interception. Really 18 yards, I think, in the second half, Jovan, for Iowa. Ran 8 plays for 3 yards in the third quarter, 2 first downs in the second half. It's getting worse, man. And that's the most disheartening thing. You face adversity. You've got injuries to your top 2 tight ends and your starting quarterback. But we were hoping to see some progress offensively, and it seems like it's regressing.
Yeah, right now I'm starting to think in regards to offensive football. What is the bigger picture of what you're trying to do. Like, what do you want to get accomplished? What is the grand scheme of things? Because, 127 total yards of offense is, I mean, you just had running backs with more yards than that in the last game. So, I don't understand, what the grand scheme of what they want to do offensively. Defense is still holding their own, didn't give up, I don't think, a touchdown at all, 4 field goals. But, you can't have 11 yards rushing in a football game and expect to win. And when it's crunch time and you have the chance to win with the ball at the 40-yard line and you only need to get probably 20 yards to give yourself a chance, you got to be able to capitalize. You should have situational plays that are catered to those situations, like down by 2, a minute and whatever left in the game, got to get 20 yards. Like, you have to be able to get 20 yards. And I mean, you could put the blame on the quarterback. You could put the blame on the offensive coordinator. You could place the blame wherever you may, but you got to have situational awareness to understand the situation and be able to make something happen to give yourself a chance to win.
Yeah, when it's going this bad, Jovan, there's a lot of ownership here. Whether it's the offensive line being inconsistent, the quarterback being inaccurate, just being outnumbered in the box. I mean, Wisconsin showed that it wasn't going to let Iowa, or was going to try to prevent Iowa from running the ball. Iowa did it anyway. Minnesota sold out even more this week to the run and slowed Iowa down. So now you got to counter, man. You've got to find a way to get people out of the box. You've got 2 weeks now before Northwestern to figure this out. And there's no pixie dust. There's no magic here. You just got to come up with ways to be able to move the football. And we've talked about it before, Jovan, with the complementary football, offense, defense, special teams. The very least, your offense can't hurt you. And it did yesterday. It turned the ball over 3 times. You had the 2 fumbles and the interception. 3-0 was the turnover difference. Your offense cost you the game.
Yeah.
There's really no other way to frame it.
Any time in a game where it's a tight one, turnovers are very important. I mean, you flip the field consistently on special teams. Defense held up their end of the bargain. And the 3 turnovers loom large to become the outcome of the football game. I mean, you still, regardless of how good, bad, or ugly the offense was, they still had a chance to win the game with a minute and a half to go in the game. Even after the overturn call of a touchdown that brought the ball back to the 40 or whatnot, they still had a minute and 33 seconds or whatever it was on the clock to get the ball in field goal range and give your field goal kicker, who's pretty darn good, a chance to win the game. So, I mean, yeah, 3 turnovers became the reason, but it could have easily been avoided.
Defense played super again, as Jovan said. Gave up 113 yards on the ground, but it took 45 Minnesota carries to get there. That's 2.5 yards per carry. Nothing wrong there. Minnesota 10 for 25, throwing the football for 126 yards, 5 yards an attempt, 12.6 a completion. Put pressure on the quarterback. I thought Joe Evans played really well, not only in getting at the quarterback, but setting the edge. He had a couple nice tackles when they tried to run his way. Thoughts on the defense, Jovan?
Yeah, they're continuing to evolve. You get some guys stepping into the fold, making some plays. Had a few big sacks there in the game. Jay Higgins is continuing to be everywhere. I think he had a total of 14 tackles, a lot of assists, but that just means he's always around the ball. Cooper didn't really get to make an impact as much as he has in the past. They didn't really attack him much. And then also Sebastian Castro, who made some plays, but he didn't really get nowhere near as many opportunities. So they kind of neutralized a lot of the guys that make plays on defense. But the defense held up their end of the bargain, and they're continuing to get better as a young group. A lot of young guys up front that are being thrust into the fold and making plays, and that's all you can ask for. They've continued to improve every week, and as a defensive coach, that's what you want to see in your guys when you have a bunch of new guys out there on the field in the new year.
And our guy, Tory Taylor, 9 punts, 49.3 average, 57 for his long, 4 inside the opponent 20-yard line, and he had only his second touchback of the season came yesterday as well. So that late punt too, man. I mean, that was the complimentary football, right? You get the stop. He gets it down there inside the 5, way down there. You get the ball back. I mean, it looked like it was playing out like it was supposed to play out. And Tory Taylor, again, held up his end of the bargain throughout the game.
Yeah, he's probably right now, him and Cooper DeJean, probably the 2 most valuable players for the Iowa football team. Those guys are playing amazing, but Tory Taylor just continues to impress. The way he's able to pin you inside the 20-yard line or get you out of backed up situations and always gives you a chance to flip the field and win the hidden yardage battle. I mean, that kid is amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a top 3-round draft pick in the NFL.
Yeah, he is a weapon, no doubt. And they're going to need him to continue to play like this because obviously, as we've talked about, the offense is not in a good place right now. You look at the rushing numbers, Caleb Johnson, 6 carries, 18 yards. LeSean Williams, 11 carries for 13 yards. And Jazion Patterson, 3 carries for 2 yards. Deacon Hill finishes 10 of 28. Jovan with an interception, no touchdowns, 116 yards passing. He was sacked 4 times. I'll give you guys the ugly numbers here. I'm certainly not trying to drag the kid, but Deacon Hill just is not playing well right now. He was, like I said, he was 10 of 28 yesterday. Since taking over for Cade McNamara when Cade suffered the ACL injury in the Michigan State game, Deacon Hill is 33 of 90. That's 36.6% for 378 yards, 2 TDs, 3 picks. What are we doing here, Jovan?
I mean, if I'm the coach, I'm looking at what the next guy has to offer. Because what more could you lose by going with the next quarterback on the roster? Because right now, I mean, 36% completion percentage is not very good. It doesn't matter who you are. You got to be able to make throws, even if it's just quick dink and dunks. You could complete more than 3 out of 10. That's not acceptable, especially not at that level. So you have to think about, making a move at quarterback, at least making it an open competition, to put the pressure on the guy that you're going with, to make him understand that, nothing in life is given. You got to earn it. And if the other quarterback gets in there and he's able to make the plays and make the throws and do what you need him to do to be a game manager, I mean, what more can you lose?
It's kind of one of these interesting dynamics, right, Jovan? You've got Kirk coming out yesterday when asked about the question. It's a fair question. It's certainly the quarterback position is a fair question because it's just not performing right now. And context, again, are the tight ends getting it done? Are the receivers getting it done? The running backs, offensive line? But the quarterback is the position, right? That's the one that we all see and we all evaluate, and it's just not producing right now. And you've got a guy behind him who missed some of training camp, but he won a bowl game. He beat Kentucky in a bowl game, in the Music City Bowl game, in Joe Labus. So it just, to me, Kirk is saying we're going to play the guy that gives us the best chance to win. When we evaluate practice, we see the games. there's gray area, right? Labus in practice may not look as good as Deacon Hill, but we see Deacon Hill in the games not getting it done. I'm just wondering, sometimes you got to take a chance, right? Even if your mind in practice is telling you it's not an upgrade, maybe you try just to see, because the guy that's in there is not getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, with how well the defense and special teams are playing, I mean, you take a chance and just say, let's see what the kid does. Maybe in practice he's not performing to the best of his ability, but maybe he's just a gamer. Maybe he's a guy that gets in the game and then lights it up. Like I've seen guys be able to do that, guys that weren't as good in practice, and then they get out there in the game and it's like, who is this guy? Like, I've seen it happen. So, at the end of the day, you're not losing anything by giving the kid a chance, is my point. You're not getting worse. The offense isn't going to change. Maybe he has more of a presence in the pocket that, can extend plays with his legs, or feel like he can run a little bit better, and when it all breaks down, maybe he can elude pressure and get away, but I mean, giving him a chance isn't going to hurt anything with the offensive production right now.
No, I would agree, and we'll see what happens here. At least from public comments from Coach Ferentz, he makes it seem like Deacon is far and away their best option. I guess if we didn't have any evidence of Joey Labus winning a bowl game against Kentucky, we would say, okay. But we have evidence that the kid could actually win a ball game. And it just, to me, you don't make change for change's sake. But in this case, it seems like a change, or, giving them both a chance to compete for this thing during the bye week is the right way to go. But Coach Ferentz has won a lot of football games. I've won none. So we'll let him make the decision here in the bye week. I will say, Jovan, that as tough as yesterday was, Iowa still is in the driver's seat for the West. And I'll explain here. If you look at the standings today, it may not seem that way. Wisconsin is a game ahead of Iowa at 3-1 in the league. Iowa and Minnesota. Well, Iowa's 3-2, Minnesota 2-2, Nebraska 2-2. Wisconsin and Minnesota still have games left with Ohio State. They're not beating Ohio State. Neither one of those teams is beating Ohio State. I don't care if they play that on the moon. So that's 2 more losses for those teams. So that would put Minnesota with 3 losses, Wisconsin with 2, which would tie with Iowa. So Iowa would have the tiebreaker there. Iowa just can't lose again, and particularly cannot lose to Nebraska, because Nebraska has, say, an easy schedule, but Nebraska's 2-2, a half game behind Iowa. And I'll give you Nebraska's remaining games: Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland at home. They do play at Wisconsin, and then they get Iowa at home. So we could be going to the Black Friday game in Lincoln, Nebraska, with the division on the line. But Iowa needs to flush this. If Iowa wins out, provided there's just not some craziness and Wisconsin or Minnesota beats Ohio State, Iowa will still be in control of its own destiny. You've been probably on both sides of this, Jovan, going into bye weeks with wins, going into bye weeks off of losses. What is the mode of operation for Iowa this week with, 2 weeks now? How much self-evaluation do you do? What's kind of the plan here for this bye week?
It's all about you. Like, it's all about evaluating yourself. Where can you get better? How can you improve? Who do you need to see more of? Who can help you win? Just going into the bye week, you're going to go back to the drawing board and see, where does the team need the most improvement? I'm sure they're going to address the concerns on the offense. See, maybe they come up with a package for Cooper DeJean on offense. They're gonna do something over the bye week to address the offensive concerns, because they're not gonna just sit back and watch the offense lackluster performances continue. They're gonna come out, and I would assume against Northwestern with a game plan that is gonna be like, okay, we're gonna take the shots, we're gonna run the ball, they're gonna do a lot of different things in the next game that they have after the bye week, but they're gonna address the concerns that they see and feel needs to be addressed to make them a better football team.
So that's this whole next week, right, Jovan? And then you wait till Northwestern till the following week, or maybe start to pick it up next weekend as you maybe get an extra day or something for Northwest prep.
Yeah, for sure. They're gonna use this next week, the bye week. They're gonna go get after it for the next few days. They're gonna watch the film, evaluate that, make the corrections, and then they're gonna lift. They're gonna hit the practice field. They're going to get after it during practice for 3 days at least. And then they'll probably take the weekend, come back Sunday, watch some more film, and prepare for the next game against Northwestern. But they're going to use these next 4 opportunities that they get for this week, because they're not letting guys go home. Not right now. And this during where they are right now, they're not about to say, oh, we're just gonna give everybody the week off. I don't think the team's in a position for that.
Let's have some fun here. I'm going to let you get creative. You brought up Cooper DeJean playing offense. Let's hear your package. What's your plan? How would you use him if you were put him on this offense?
I do some things with him to use him as a decoy. I would put him in a slot. I'd motion him. I'd orbit motion him and like run option with him. Just some
explain that. Explain what orbit motion is for people that don't know.
So basically, you're taking the slot receiver or whichever receiver's off the ball. It could be the Z, could be whoever, but a slot receiver, a guy that can move, and motioning him behind the quarterback. So he's going to motion towards the line of scrimmage, and then he's going to bubble and go around the quarterback. And then the quarterback is just going to turn the game into triple option, where the running back is now the dive guy, and a guy like Cooper DeJean, who played quarterback, that, you know, has played with the ball in his hands often, is the pitch guy. So you can do some things with him to get him the football, or even use him as a decoy, because just because he's orbit motioning doesn't mean he's getting the football. You know, you can still run your run game off of that. You could run him on jet motions and give him the ball on jet sweeps. You could even implement him in the screen game. But he's a guy, and he's proven over and over and over again, especially over the last 2 weeks, that when he has the football in his hands, he makes things happen. So using him on offense for maybe a couple plays here and there, you know, whatever the package consists of, is not going to hurt anything. He's actually going to give you a better output than what you've gotten from everybody else.
But Jovan, what if he gets hurt?
I mean, he plays 1,000 snaps on defense, returns punts. He can get hurt anytime. He can get hurt at practice. I mean, if you're going into it with the mindset of you're going to limit him from a 10-play package because that might get him hurt, then you're sadly mistaken, because he can get hurt at any given moment, whether it's lifting weights, walking to class. I mean, he's playing football games, so he has the potential to get hurt regardless. It doesn't matter if he plays 10 extra plays. Travis Hunter from Colorado is playing 150 plays a game. So, I mean, if you're worrying about a guy getting hurt, then you're worried about the wrong thing.
I know who's not worried about getting hurt, and that's Cooper DeJean. He would take this assignment on with a big smile on his face, and he would embrace it. And I think he'd be pretty good at it.
Yeah, he's going to give you the best. He's going to give you his best, and his best is better than most of the players on the team's best. So I wouldn't hold him back from it. I'd definitely look into it, and if I could or thought that it made sense, I would definitely give it a shot.
For the first time this season, folks, Iowa is averaging less than 20 points per game. That sunk below yesterday. Iowa's now at 19.5 points per game. and defensive scores count in that as well. So not good. And I think at this point, you got to check. You got to try all avenues. You have to. Whoever is in your locker room and is healthy can help you on offense. It's time to make the move. You've got 2 weeks now to kind of implement it and maybe try some things in practice. As Jovan said, I'm not sure Iowa can win enough here. Even though these 4 games they're going to be favored with this offense. We saw yesterday the offense hurt this team and then not be able to come through in a clutch spot in the last few minutes. I just think you have to try anything you can try. I know you've talked about playing Leishon and Caleb at the same time. Any other thoughts in your mind, Jovan, offensively that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that I think you can do. I mean, if you're not going to use Cooper DeJean, then I would use both of those running backs, Caleb and LeSean, together in a package where you're in split back formations. You could use one as a dive guy, one as an option guy. You could still do some of the same things where you could run outside zone and use one of them as a lead blocker, help them get on the edge faster. But you could do a lot of different things when you have those type of players with that caliber of skill set. I mean, I would run with those 2 guys. I would tear motion one of them out the backfield to get the eyes of the defense, and then I'll run the ball with the other one. But just doing things to implement those 2 guys and their skill sets to give you the best chance of winning. I mean, you could do so many different things with guys like those 2 running backs.
And it seems like the 12 and 13 is just not working. Teams they're not able to convert, to succeed enough in 12 and 13 right now. And it makes sense without Lachey and all, right? You lose your 2 top tight ends. Why are you still so committed to 12 and 13? Why not run more 11? We saw the receivers yesterday, Jovan. Deontay Vines, fabulous catch early in that game. Nico made some plays. You got to get the receivers more involved. They made 9 catches yesterday. It was progress, but I think that's something they've got to build on.
Yeah, I mean, again, mixing up the packages, you force teams to have to defend you instead of sticking to what they're traditionally in scheme-wise. So, motioning, if you go into a 10 personnel set, when you bring in 4 receivers, 1 running back in the backfield, and you motion that running back out the backfield and go into empty, guess what? Everybody has to adjust, right? You could run quarterback draw game, you could run screen game, you could run quick game, you could run a million different things out of empty, with just moving your running back to the slot. You could line up in empty out of 11 personnel, if that's what you want to live in. Go in 11 personnel, line up in empty, move and shift the running back in the backfield and put your tight end wherever you're going to put them at. But those type of, just those little subtle things forces the defenses to think, and they also forces the defense to have to communicate. But because they don't see it, then Iowa is just lining up, running the plays. They've seen it on film 1,000 times, the same plays over and over and over again. So you're giving them the advantage and not making them have to work for it. If you line up in empty, shift back to the same set, motion a guy, now they have to think. And then you run the same plays. You don't need to, I'm not saying go reinvent the wheel offensively, but put in some nuances, some new wrinkles that makes the defense have to adjust. And that'll help.
No question. And we've talked about this before. It's the predictability of what Iowa does. Try to be less predictable. And maybe that opens some things up for you on the offense. And it's kind of what I think if you go into this bye week with trying to figure out how to be less predictable.
Yeah, for sure. You have to. Now, I mean, and that's just, you put in 2-3 wrinkles and motions and things like that. And I mean, that kind of creates adjustments for defenses, and it makes you a little bit less predictable because they haven't seen it. You run the same offense, just put in a couple wrinkles off of it so that when they watch film, they're not saying, okay, when they get in this formation, here's the play they're going to run. Or when they line up like this, here's what they're going to do. Line up differently, motion to it, give them something to think about. And then maybe they wouldn't be able to just breathe down your neck every play you run.
Yep. And teams going forward are going to force Iowa to do some things differently. We saw it yesterday with Minnesota. They're just not going to, I mean, you can be as committed to the running game as you want. If you're outnumbered, which Iowa was yesterday in the running game, it's just, you can speak to this, Joe. It's when you're outnumbered like that, it's almost impossible to run the football.
Yeah, they always call it having a free hitter in a box. So basically, they're putting more defenders in the box than you can block. So one of those guys will be unblocked, and he's the free hitter. All he has to do is make the tackle. But at that level, the guys are so good. Defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, they're so good at defeating blocks that even though you have that one extra in the box, it looks like you have 4 or 5 extra in the box because they're defeating blocks. They're not staying blocked. So just having some things to combat that. If teams are going to stack the box, maybe utilizing some RPOs, whether it's quick slants, quick hitches, now screens, and things like that, depending on how the corner's playing. But just give yourself a chance to be successful. A simple RPO, run the ball to the right, left receiver runs a slant. If the backer comes, you pull, you throw the slant. I mean, simple mathematics, but it's a run play with a pass option off of it that is still a run play. That'll give you the same output. Whether you get 3, 4, 5 yards on the slant route with the DB making a tackle, at the end of the day, that's a 5-yard run game instead of getting stuffed in the backfield for a 1-yard or 2-yard loss because they have numbers in the box.
That's the task of Iowa's coaching staff and the players during this bye week, is to figure out ways to move the football and see if they can maybe find an avenue to get Cooper DeJean on offense and get one of your best playmakers the ball in his hands. Expert analysis, awesome, by Jovan Johnson, as always. Sorry we did not have Jordan today. Again, condolences to Jordan and his family. We hope to talk to him after the Northwestern game. Still got to get a read in here before we get out of town. Let's pull it up here. I want to let folks know that support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. You got big plans today, Jovan? Are you just going to sit around and watch the NFL?
Yeah, I'm going to go take the kids to brunch and then come back and watch some NFL games. And that's pretty much it for me.
Well, you have a great day with the family and watching football. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsors. And Jovan and I will be back in a couple weeks after the Northwestern game. Hopefully Jordan will be back with us then. Until then, be well, and we'll talk to you soon.